Chapter 5 Global Issue that Concern School and Society.
Good day, everyone. I'm Jonna Rose Malabana.
Good day, everyone. My name is Mylene Ungwalimata, one of the reporter on this afternoon. And for this afternoon, the topic we will discuss is entitled Global Issue that Concern Schools and Society. Tended Learning Outcomes. At the end of this chapter, you should be able to discuss at least two global issues in society and explain proposed solution to the social problems.
Introduction.
The world has become a global village. We have become a citizen of a global community. What takes place in one part of the globe, no matter how far, affects us. It is a small world after all, so goes the song. In this chapter, we will discuss global issues that affect schools and us. It is hoped that you are able to propose solutions to social problems which have become current global issues.
Activity Let's read this. Below are the top 10 world issues from the two sources. Compare them. You are also given the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for the period 2015 to 2030. After comparing the top 10 world issues, match the 17 Sustainable Development Goals with the 10 world issues to determine if these top world issues correspond to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of 2015 to 2030. Use the table for the comparison.
Here are the top 10 world issues according to millennials based on the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers Survey in 2017. Climate change, destruction of nature, large-scale conflict, inequality, income discrimination, poverty, religious conflicts, government accountability and transparency, corruption, food and water security, lack of education, safety, security, well-being, lack of economic opportunity, and employment. Here are the top 10 current global issues according to Chu Turner: climate change, pollution, violence, security and well-being, lack of education, unemployment, government corruption, malnourishment and hunger, substance abuse, terrorism. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals for the period 2015 to 2030. End poverty in all its forms everywhere. End hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. Ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Ensure exclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation of all. Ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy of all. Promote sustained, exclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Build resilience infrastructure, promote exclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Reduce inequality within the among countries. Make cities and human settlements exclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. Conserve and sustainable use the ocean, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystem, sustainable manage forests, combat desertification, and half unreserved land degradation, and half biodiversity loss. Promote peaceful and exclusive society for sustainable development. Provide access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and exclusive institutions at all levels. Strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development.
See on the table are the following ideas as correspond to each column. On the first and second column are the listed ideas that are the top 10 world issues. And the last column are the 17 SDG on the period 2015 to 2030.
Analysis. Let's analyze. Are the current global issue in both lists similar? Yes. Are the current global issues ranked similarly? No. Do these top 10 global issues correspond to the 17 SDGs 2015 to 2030? Yes.
The top 10 global issues and how they can be addressed. Climate change. The global temperatures are rising and are estimated to increase from 2.6 degrees Celsius to 4.8 degrees Celsius by 2100. This would cause more severe weather crises with food and resources and the spread of diseases. The reduction of greenhouse emissions and the spreading of education on the importance of going green can help make a big difference. Lobbying governments and discussing policies to reduce carbon emissions and encouraging reforestation is an effective way of making progress with climate change. Pollution. Pollution includes ocean litter, pesticides and fertilizers, air, light, and noise pollution. Clean water is essential for humans and animals, but more than 1 billion people don't have access to clean water due to pollution from toxic substances, sewage, or industrial waste.
Violence. Violence can be found in the social, cultural, and economic aspect of the world, whether it is conflict that has broken out in a city, hatred targeted at a certain group or period, or sexual harassment occurring on the street. Violence is a preventable problem that has been an issue for longer than necessary. Here are various forms of violence.
Physical violence. Physical violence occurs when someone uses a part of their body or an object to control a person's actions. Sexual violence. Sexual violence occurs when a person is forced to unwillingly take part in sexual activity. Emotional violence. Emotional violence occurs when someone says or does something make a person feel stupid or worthless. Psychological violence occurs when someone uses threats and causes fear in an individual to gain control. Spiritual violence. Spiritual or religious violence occurs when someone uses an individual's spiritual beliefs to manipulate, dominate, or control that person. Cultural violence. Cultural violence occurs when an individual is harmed as a result of practices that are part of her or his culture, religion, or tradition. Security and well-being. The UN is a perfect example of what should be done to prevent the lack of security and well-being, a serious global issue. Through its effort, with regional organizations and representatives that are skilled in security, the UN is working toward increasing the well-being of people throughout the world. Lack of education. More than 72 million children throughout the globe that are of the age to be in primary education are not enrolled in school. This can be attributed
to inequality and marginalization as well as poverty. Fortunately, there are many organizations that work directly with the issue of education in providing the proper tools and resources to aid school. The Philippines has consistently made a significant stride in its functional literacy rate. Functional literacy, as defined by the National Statistics Authority, is the level of literacy which includes not only reading and writing but also numeracy skills that would help people to cope the daily demands of life. Based on the 2013 Functional Literacy Education and Mass Media Survey, the country registered a 90.3%, which means that 9 of every 10 Filipinos aged 10 to 64 were functionally literate.
Unemployment. Without the necessary education and skills for employment, many people, particularly 15 to 24 years old, struggle to find jobs and create a proper living for themselves and their families. This leads to a lack of necessary resources such as enough food, clothing, transportation, and proper living conditions. The unemployment rate in the Philippines inched lower to 5.2% in the March quarter of 2019 from 5.3% a year ago. Unemployment rate in Philippines averaged 8.34% from 1994 until 2019, reaching an all-time high of 13.90% in the first quarter of 2000 and a record low of 4.70% in the fourth quarter of 2016. Government corruption. Means of corruption include graft, bribery, embezzlement, backdoor deals, nepotism, and patronage. Corruption is a major cause of poverty, considering how it affects the poor the most, eroding political and economic development, democracy, and more. Corruption can be detrimental to the safety and well-being of citizens living within the corrupted vicinity and can cause an increase in violence and physical threats without as much regulation in the government. The Philippines ranked 94 out of 177 countries in Transparency International's 2013 Corruption Index. Malnutrition and hunger. Currently, there are 795 million people who do not have enough to eat. Long-term success to ending world hunger starts with ending poverty. By fighting poverty through proper training for employment, education, and the teaching of cooking and gardening skills, people who are suffering will be more likely to get jobs, earn enough money to buy food, and even learn how to make their own food to save money. Malnutrition in all its forms include undernutrition, wasting, stunting, underweight, inadequate vitamins or minerals, overweight, obesity, and resulting diet-related non-communicable diseases. The planet creates more than enough food to meet everyone's needs, but there are still millions of hungry people in the world. Substance abuse. Substance abuse is that harmful or hazardous use of psychoactive substances, including alcohol and illicit drugs. World Health Organization. The United Nations reports that by the beginning of the 21st century, an estimated 185 million people over the age of 15 were consuming drugs globally. The drugs most commonly used are marijuana, cocaine, alcohol, amphetamine, stimulants, and volatile solvents. Different classes of people, both poor and rich, partake in substance abuse and is a persistent issue throughout the world, but developing world marginalized groups and communities are the most vulnerable to this reality. The Philippines faces this huge problem on substance abuse. Terrorism. Terrorism is an issue throughout the world that causes fear and insecurity, violence, and death. Across the globe, terrorists attack innocent people, often without warning. This makes civilians feel defenseless in their everyday lives. Making national security a higher priority is key in combating terrorism, as well as promoting justice and wrongdoings to illustrate the enforcement of the law and the serious punishments for terror crimes. The 17 SDGs. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said, "The 17 Sustainable Development Goals are our shared vision of humanity and a social contract between the world's leaders and the people. They are a to-do list for people and planet and a blueprint for success." After Millennium Development Goals of 2015, here comes another to-do list for the sake of the entire humanity. Refer to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 in the first part of this chapter.
Global Issue SDG 2015 to 2030 and Education. In September 2015, the General Assembly adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development that includes 17 Sustainable Development Goals, building on the principle of leaving no one behind. The new agenda emphasizes a holistic approach to achieving sustainable development. The realization of the 17 SDG means solving the top global issues cited by the two sources. This global issue and SDG 2015 to 2030 must be intentionally taught in school because they are made part of the curriculum. Application, let's apply. Number 1. Based on the top 10 global issue and the 17 SDG, choose one global issue or SDG and give suggestion on what school must do to address the problem. The answer in that question is that I choose pollution as a global issue. School can address pollution by restricting smoking around the entire school area. Teach students to learn that small action like recycling can have a big impact. Number 2. What moves has the Philippine government taken to ensure equitable access to education for all its citizens? In question number 2 is that the Philippines was implemented or assigned to K-12 curriculum in our country. They have also a free basic education for Filipino. They expand alternative learning system to provide skill-based learning opportunities. So, in the question, how come the Philippines has one of the highest number of educated people and yet we remain to be island of affluence amid a sea of poverty, meaning poverty abounds? So, my answer is that poverty is continuing because of the low job creation in our country, low economic growth, and high levels of population growth. The financial is one of the factors that add to the growing education issue in the Philippines. So in that question, can this be traced to poor quality of Philippine education? Why or why not? Yes, because the growth of population of Filipino struggle to avoid basic necessity. Isa ang kahirapan kung bakit madaming tambay na mga Pilipino. Mas pinipili nila ang maging tambay kaysa pumasok sa paaralan. Dahil sa kahirapan ay isinasantabi nila ang kahalagaan ng edukasyon. Wala silang kakayahan na mapunan ang ganitong aktibidad o hindi nila kaya ma-afford ang edukasyon. 4. Go over the K-12 curriculum guide. Find out where this global issue and SDG are integrated. If you find one or more not integrated in the K-12 curriculum, identify points of integration in the curriculum. Column, I choose the pollution as a global issue. Then, based on the curriculum guide, K-12, this is integrated in the subject science in the topic climate change and global warming. Choose as a global issue the unemployment. Then, based on the K-12 curriculum guide, this is integrated in the subject Araling Panlipunan in the topic contemporaryong issue. In the question number 5, my answer is yes. I am agreed that some blame the Philippines corruption problem on the merging of Filipino tradition with American institution. Takeaways. Top global issues today are large-scale conflict, wars, violence, terrorism, inequality, income discrimination, poverty, unemployment, religious conflicts, graft and corruption, food and water security, malnourishment and hunger, lack of education, safety, security and well-being, lack of economic opportunity and employment, pollution. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals are the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future of all. They address the global challenges we face, including those related to poverty, inequality, climate, environmental degradation, prosperity, and peace and justice. Lahat ng mga na-discuss na mga issue o mga problema na nararanasan ng Pilipinas at ng buong mundo ay malaking epekto sa edukasyon at maging sa pag-unlad ng society. Patuloy na masisira o hindi uunlad ang edukasyon kung walang ginagawang aksyon ang pamahalaan dito. Mahalaga ang edukasyon. Mahalaga na may pinag-aralan. At huwag nating hayaan na masira ito ng mga problemang nararanasan ng mundo. Edukasyon, paano uunlad ang sarili, maging ang society. So huwag tayo magpadala sa mga hadlang na nakabalakid sa edukasyon. Gumawa tayo ng paraan nang sa ganun ay lahat ng mga goals o minimiti natin sa buhay ay matupad. Ika nga nila, tanging edukasyon ang mapapamana o ipapamana natin. At tunay ngang mahalaga ang edukasyon kahit anumang mangyari. Kahit tayo ay may pinagdadaan ng mga problema, ngunit ang lahat ng mga nangyayaring ito ay may dahilan. Kumbaga, hindi ibibigay ng Diyos ang pagsubok kung hindi natin kayang lagpasan. We need to trust God, but we should also take an action to solve it. Let's check for understanding. So, for this activity, in the first column, you will think a problem or issue that is applicable to the Philippines. In the second column, you will think a Philippine law meant to address the problem. In the last column, you will think a specific position of the law. Let's reflect. In this activity, you will do an essay form that answer in the question, do I contribute to any of the global issue? Am I part of the problem? Can I be part of the solution? And in the last activity, let clinkers, you will do this activity by picking the best answer or choosing the letter that correspond to each question.